So one of the scenarios that could happen on Alone, season 11, they're in the Arctic Circle, about 100 or so miles into it, is, of course, falling through ice. Eventually it's going to freeze over, and they're going to be going out on ice to fish, to find, to find food. Now, this little beginning clip you saw, which I'm going to play again right now, was created by artificial intelligence, a text to video. You've heard of text to image. Now they have text to video. So all I had to enter in was a man falling through ice during the winter time. And so I got something. You can see the water is fairly shallow here. It appears that he's falling and getting up again and falling again. But even that could be deadly, falling in, say 3 feet through of water. Now, why is it so dangerous? Hypothermia. When you get your clothing wet, your body radiates heat really quickly, okay? Usually clothing works by having air spaces, dead air spaces in it, so that's what keeps you insulated. Well, if those air spaces are filled with water, you're in for big trouble. One of the most dangerous temperatures, believe it or not, where people tend to get hypothermia is 55 degrees, because it's warm. People don't think there's a concern, but they get drenched and they start radiating way too much heat. And all you need is that temperature of your body to drop like a degree or so, and you're in big trouble. So, what are the protocols or safety measures you can take about ice? Well, number one is you don't go on thin ice. You don't go on ice at all if you can help it. Now, of course, if you need to survive, you may have to. One of the things you can do is they have a probing thing that you can shove into the ice, sharp on the end, and you can get an idea how deep the ice is. Because you want a certain number of inches for whatever weight you're putting on it. So there are a couple of things you can do that can help you. One of the first ones I've seen, and I think I've seen Les Stroud do this. I've seen Bear Grylls do this, and I'm not sure who else, at least on TV, has done this. And basically, they purposely jump into a hole in the ice. They've got the camera people around and everything. This isn't a, do alone scenario. And they stay there for a minute, and then they try to get out. Well, one of the big problems is, that you having a reaction when you hit that cold water of going, and if you do that on the water, that's bad, because you're going to be sucking this cold water right into you, and that could be a killer. So say that you don't do that, then you got to get up out of the ice. Well, two things could help with that if you thought of them previously. One of them is ice spikes. Now, basically, it looks like a handle, a piece of wood. I'll use this flashlight just as a demonstration piece. Okay, they'd be a little bigger than this. Well, and on the end they have a spike. They have a rope on them tied to another one. And you can actually put these on. Remember how when you had little kids that you would have these mittens with a cord so they wouldn't lose their mittens? Well, you do this with the ice spike. So when you're out on the ice, you can't drop them because they're attached to you. But basically what you would do, you fall in the ice, and then you would use these, to pull yourself out, because that point is going to sink down into the ice and allow you to pull it. And another another tool is just a long branch. Say you're stuck somewhere and you didn't have that piece of equipment already, you get a really long branch with the idea that if you fall, you're going to fall with that branch, and it's going to rest on the ice that isn't broken, and you're going to be able to not go down, dunk all the way down in and out. And you're going to have something to grab onto to try to pull yourself up and get back on the ice. And if you get back on the ice, you don't get up. You stay flat. One source but this was just one source, said you roll. But the idea is you want your body to be in as much contact with the ice as possible. So in other words, let's just say we're taking a typical person that some guy weighs 180 pounds, say. All of that's being exerted on the ice in his footprints, that small, cut that area out. That's not trace it, cut it out. That's not a very big area. But if you're laying flat, you've got your whole body length is distributing the weight, so you have less of a chance of it cracking. So then you would go and get to the shore. Now, the problem is, once you get to the shore, what do? Well, ideally, you're going to get off the wet clothes and you're going to try to warm up. So that pretty much says that you would really have to have, say you go out ice fishing, this is a solo thing, and you're going to come back. One of the wiser things you could do is set up a fire situation already. In other words, you're going to have your dry tinder, your kindling, your actual fuel. You can have that all set up, and you're going to have some hopefully easy source of ignition, like a ferro rod, so that you do that, you get back, you start that fire right up, and you warm yourself up. Now, it depends on how far your shelter is. Some of these people have their shelters fairly close to the water. You could get to your shelter maybe, but it's like you have to have that thing kind of all set up, because you are going to get so cold. And the thing is, if you stay in the ice water like 10 minutes, your muscles are going to become useless. Well, if you stay in your wet clothes for a long period of times, that's going to happen. And other things are going to happen. You're going to start getting confused. You're not going to be thinking straight. And that's really going to be bad. So it would be hopeful, if this scenario was likely to happen, that you would have some dry clothes to put on. So even if, say, your down jacket or whatever you've got and things like that get wet, that you'd at least have a change of clothes to give you, socks, pants, shirt, or whatever, maybe a hat, so that you can, get the wet stuff off, get something dry on you, and then, start that fire there, or bring that stuff to your shelter. And like I say, you basically, it's got to be quick. So you got to have that fire. You should have a fire always ready to go if you're dealing with ice. And, rescuing people that fall through ice, I don't know if that would ever happen on the show, because if you were to, let's say you're out doing the hole, you have to keep these sat phones with you, right? I'm going to assume they're waterproof. If you were to go down in the ice, can't get up, and somehow you could operate your sat phone and call for help, well, it's probably going to take quite a bit over 10 minutes to be rescued. So in that scenario, you're going to need to go to a hospital if you survive that. So that to me is one of the very real dangers of this show, is getting completely wet in water or ice water, and then not having a way to get your body temperature up. Now, in one of the previous seasons, this woman made a decision to swim out to something. So she does it. She swims back, and she's really cold, okay? There's not ice on the water yet, but again, it's very cold water. She ends up going back to her shelter. She's got a fire, and so she gets, as close to the fire as she can, but she ends up actually burning the inside of her legs. She's not really that, I think, aware of it when it happens, but later she realizes that she was way too close to the fire. And, hypothermia generally, if it's extreme, it's going to be treated in a hospital situation, not in the field. It would be interesting to know if alone what they have. They must have some things for that scenario to happen, where they go to someone unresponsive, in the ice, or just has gotten, out of the water and on the ice or the shore and has just hit that button and just can't function anymore. So the trick is generally they have to be warmed up slowly. And I've even seen maybe they have this, but in mountain rescues, this sort of thing happens often where someone's hypothermic. And they have this kind of, what I want to say is, it kind of looks like a mummy sleeping bag, but it's got a heater. And what they actually do is they gently heat the air that you breathe in. And so that allows your core to get warmer and gradually go to the extremities. And if you're treating yourself and you first just warm up your hands and feet, that can work against you because it draws the blood away from your core. And that's not going to be nice. So that, I think, is, other than, turning a corner and meeting a bear or a moose that's angry at you, this falling through the ice scenario, I think, would be one of the most dangerous things that could happen to you in a situation, because even though you can call for help, that help is going to take a little while to get there. And you might have gone enough distance so that the helicopter has to land somewhere else, and they have to go, they have to travel to get you. And I believe from what I saw of the pre-show that they've got sites where they've set up and cut back some of the vegetation so they can get to each of those sites, most of them anyway, with that helicopter in case there was a dramatic rescue that needs to be done. And what would be the scenarios for rescuing someone? Hopefully you would have something, you have a line that you could throw to the person and you could pull them out of the water. But in scenarios where you wouldn't have that, you might have to take a long branch and then you get on the ice, lying on the ice, not with the feet, because you saw what happened to him. And then you go out just far enough so that they can grab that, and then you start pulling them, and hopefully you both get back. So falling through the ice, a very possible thing that could be very deadly on this show where they're so far up in the Arctic.